Thank you. Recent months, we have found ourselves surrounded by these not so new inventions, disinfectant dispersers. They come in several different formats. We have the regular pump, we have the automatic versions, and yeah, they are fairly easy to use, even though, at least for me, they cause a lot of annoyance now and then. When you approach such a device, you never know whether the disinfectant is going to be in liquid form, is it going to be a foam, or is it going to be a gel? You don't even know how much will you get it at once. Is it going to be a lot or just a little bit? Or is there even going to be any left? And then most importantly, what is the smell going to be? As I said, they are fairly easy to use. But on this slide, we can see an example of not so easy version. So maybe the first question here is that what actually even is this device? Is it a signpost? We see several other ones next to it. If you go closer, you can then probably notice that no, actually this is the disinfectant disperser. And you can maybe even realize that, yeah, I have here this pipe kind of thing, and then the tray, this is where I put my hands, but then what? How am I supposed to interact with this device? Again, looking at the device, if you look at the feet of this one, you can see there is this small black oval thing. And how I tried to interact with this the first time was to try to actually like kick it. If I get it kind of like to roll in one way or another. But actually how you are supposed to do it is you just gently push it just a little bit, and then you get your disinfectant. So I learned how to use it, but then after all I decided that better to keep my own disinfectant with me. But before we go forward, we could check what we are going to be speaking about for the next 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, so here you can see our agenda. So first we're going to talk about our paths to the UX, our roles currently, and then what is user experience. After that, go to user experience design processes, then some tools and methods, and last we're going to check out where could you utilize then this kind of user experience design process if you're not working in digital services or products.
So if we start with my path, my name is Salla. I work at Ericsson as a service designer, but I think my path to user experience design started when I was 13, and I got this hobby, or started this hobby of sim game stables. So the idea is that you build websites for horses and stables like they would be real ones, and then you have maybe competition with them, you can breed new ones and so forth. But the main point for me was building websites using HTML, CSS, and designing how do I best put out what I have on the site so that I actually get some visitors to my website, to my stable. I was so ashamed of this very girly and at the same time nerdy hobby that I told absolutely no one that this is actually how I use my free time. And looking back, I hope I would have had the courage to actually tell someone, because I never realized that this is something that people are going to be working with in the future, building and designing websites, thinking about the user interactions and the user experience. So after high school, I applied to Helsinki University of Technology, that we now know as Aalto University, to study materials science. And I met some really great friends. I really did like the studies, and I graduated after a few years as the Master of Science. After that, I did work a few years as a materials engineer with corrosion. I worked with interior decoration materials for elevators. But I was left thinking that maybe I should do something else with my skills. So I applied to Aalto University again, study international design business management. And almost immediately, I also got a new job in a development team to develop digital services for banking in one of the big Finnish banks. Then 2 years ago, I got a thesis job at Ericsson. I really did like the environment, and after graduation, I then started here as a service designer and have really enjoyed the ride so far. Kati, would you like to go next?
So my path, I'm always been really into sports, and that was something I was thinking to study. At that time, I was also playing football, and that on the top level in here in Finland. And the city where you could study sports didn't have a top league team, so I couldn't see myself moving then somewhere. So then I wanted to see some university exams and so forth. So I ended up studying in Helsinki University of Technology and studying telecommunications in there. First, I really disliked it. I didn't want to go there. But then I got some friends and started noticing that, oh yeah, here's a lot of interesting courses like human-centered design or human perception and action and work psychology, usability, stuff like that. And I was like really getting excited and found my way in there. So then I applied for a thesis place and got it from Ericsson. Did a usability study as my master's thesis, and but then I graduated and stayed at Ericsson working in there, but they didn't have any UX related stuff in Ericsson Finland. Those days Ericsson was very much focused just on network equipment, so not software that much, and user interfaces or this kind of experiences. But it didn't matter, football was number one, so I was just working to get some money for living, but football was the thing I was doing. Then I got 2 kids, stayed at home, but then when I got back to work, I was supposed to continue working as integration engineer. I couldn't see myself doing that, so I started looking more UX-related stuff to get my career dreams back on track. And then I actually just bumped into a couple of UX people in the corridors of Ericsson Finland, and then they needed help. So my manager was kind enough to allow me to work 1 day per week for that UX team. And well, then last year a position opened in the team, and I applied, and now I'm working as UX product owner in the team and also doing research. So.
What I think is very interesting here is that we had very different paths in a sense, but neither of us actually found a school like this is what we need to study and this is where we should go, but it was kind of an iterative round. But if we would next go to the actual topic, so the user experience and what is it?
Yeah. So here on the slide, you can see one definition of user experience. It's by Don Norman and Jakob Nielsen, who are really this kind of pioneers on the field. So user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user interaction with the company, its services and its products. So it's about the totality of the user interaction with the company. So it's about the user interface. It's about the manuals, documents, sales, marketing, customer support, so all of it. So it's UX is about people, and it's for people. We could now dive a bit deeper to that through some examples.
Yes. Excellent. So this is one of my favorite examples, and this is actually my microwave. What we can see here is plenty of buttons. I have had this microwave for approximately 5 years, and I have only used 2 buttons so far. So we have this stop/clear button, and then the start where you can put 30 seconds each time. So usually I just go 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. But then we have some interesting buttons here as well, like on the upper corner we have microwave. What does that mean? This is a microwave, so what does a microwave button do? Then the other option is that next to the microwave button we have this button where you can kind of suspect that there is probably some programs, but the programs that you see is like T107, and then you are supposed to kind of know what is each one, but absolutely no idea what is T107 as a program to warm up my lunch.
Yeah, so you would need like a manual to just...
Exactly.
cryptic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The next example is actually from our Jorva's office, and this is one of my most memorable experiences. When I was first day at the office, and I was leaving the office to get to the train to get home, I went to these doors. This is our entrance. Luckily nowadays a little bit fixed version, but what I saw here is the rotating door, and then we have this sign: please use the other door. So I'm very nice, first day at the office. I go to the next door. And what it reads there is that this door is for emergency use only. Opening it will cause an alarm. And again, my first day at the office, I definitely don't want to cause any kinds of alarms.
Yeah.
So I'm there left standing and waiting that maybe someone is coming here and then tells me how to get out of the building. So luckily then, someone came, told me that, the alarm has been put off. So it won't cause any, I got outside and everything is okay. But not maybe the best experience for the first time. We have that one more.
Yeah, so this is actually my mom's MP3 player. We got it for her as a Christmas present 2 years ago when her old player broke down. So she used to have iPod Nano and she could use it, and then we got this one, and but she cannot use it. So, so the problem is that for the past 6 months, she's been listening to the same songs because she doesn't know how to change it. So she cannot navigate in there. She thinks she gets to the correct place, but when she's on the walk, she just ends up listening to the same songs. So it's on some kind of playlist of all artists, but anyhow, the shuffle is not working either that well because it's always playing the same song, like the same songs in same order. So it's a bit frustrating for my mom at the moment.
Understandably.
Yeah. Then we could go to the next example.
Yeah.
So over here, this is an application called Windy. And it allows you to see maps in the wind on map in colors. So it's definitely one of the most beautiful applications there is.
Sure.
Yeah, and it has some novel views compared to other web application weather applications as well. But I actually got to learn about this from my cousin because she was really happy. She had found this application. She was like, "Yeah, great, perfect. Our summer cottage is on an island, so this is really useful for me. We can prepare beforehand. We can see if there is windy and maybe call neighbors or something if something needs to be done." But her problem is that the arrows are always purple if you zoom too much or enough in there. So my cousin has only seen purple arrows because she's using this in mobile application. It works a bit better on desktop in a browser, but the mobile application zooms it too in already when you open it. So in here you can see in the first picture I have zoomed it out so that you can see the storm systems growing and so forth. But if you open the mobile app, you won't have that kind of view in there. So it will be already too in into the map. Yeah.
If you go further, this is one of my, again, favorite examples. It's the HSL application that you can use to search routes and buy tickets in the Helsinki region public transportation. And I still remember when I started 2008 at the Helsinki University of Technology, we were handed these printed books, timetable books that we were supposed to use to, like, here you can see the buses, you need to go there, and then you need to change, and then you need to think, like, if the change time between is enough. And now when I'm looking at this, I'm like, how did we ever use the timetables?
Yeah, how could you survive with that one?
Yes. So this is definitely nowadays, okay, maybe not right now, but in more normal situation, this would be the first application that I always download when I have a new phone. And what I like in this application that it focuses on the main functionality. So finding the routes, paying the tickets, buying the tickets. It allows you to save, for example, your home address and work address and some stops so that you can easily and quickly find the commuting routes that you are using daily, and then you have plenty of like payment options, which I also really liked. But it's in a sense, it's very useful, at least for me, I guess for many people as well, and it's very, very nicely usable. Then another, a bit newer example that helped me a lot in my work is this application by Post-it. And normally I would, after a workshop, I would go and take a picture of the Post-it wall, then in some way digitize it and struggle to get the analysis somewhere. But this actually, when I take the picture, it identifies the Post-its. It's not too specific about the brand of Post-its that you're actually using. It's very nice. You take the picture, it saves you the Post-its, and then afterwards you are able to organize them, you add new ones, you remove old ones, and so forth. So it really solves a problem that I had. How do I continue the work that I did in the workshop after I left the room and took the pictures? So very useful, nicely usable, still looking a lot what they are going to be doing in the next iterations.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to get back to the office and having some workshops and using that one. So.
Exactly. So you have one.
Yeah, so in here, there's a product that I bet people have various experiences with, some good, some bad. I think at first it's a bit tricky to get the hang of it, but then when you learn it and understand how it works with your body, so then it's great. So it's kind of like some experience, like this kind of software for experts.
Yes.
So it just needs some practice first, but then when you get to the power user level, so it's really, really great. It really, I think it gives a new feeling of freedom.
Yes.
You can even forget that you have your period, and also I think it's awesome that you get rid of all of that waste of the disposable pads and tampons and so forth. So I think it's great.
Yeah, I have the same experience. Menstrual cups changed my life in many sense.
Now we could, after these concrete examples, we could jump forward. So how can we really get to this good usability and user experience? Like, is there something we can do? How to get there? First, we will look a couple of terms, what you can run into. So there's a lot of terminology in the world of user experience. As we have called on this slide, so jungle of terminology. There's a lot of different terms. They are sometimes used interchangeably, even though they don't mean the same. Maybe from this slide, it could be seen that, or worth the mention that user experience, it can be thought as somewhat of an umbrella term, and then that one then covers user interface design, interaction design, usability considerations, product design, service design, in that sense. Then usability is about ease of use. So a web page can have a good usability, but the UX, so the user experience, can still be poor. And then design thinking, that is just a kind of an approach to problem solving. So a different way to solve problems.
So if you then jump into more of the process, let's start with this design squiggle by Damien Newman. And even this doesn't tell you the actual steps. I think this quite nicely catches the experience of working in a design process. So the feeling when you are starting the project, everything is super messy and complicated. It might be very difficult to see what is the end result going to be? How do you get to the clearer waters? What you should do next? But this is actually what we even want to do. We want to explore multiple solutions, multiple options that we might have to find out really deep dive into the problem, to define it, what is actually the problem. And the more that we know, then we can start closing out the options that are not the most suitable for this to solve this problem. And we get to see more what the actual solution should be looking like. So that the line gets less complex, the knot starts to get solved. But if we then go into what then the steps in this kind of process are, if you Google UX design process, this is probably something you will get. As we can see here, there is many different versions with different colors, different shapes, and with different structure. And it's basically almost every company has their own way of visualizing how their design process is going, so that it fits their processes and how they see the thing. On the next slide, we will see one example of a design process. This is the human-centric design process defined by the ISO 9241-210 standard. So this is just one maybe quite simplified way of expressing what it is about. What is common here in all of these design processes is that you start with trying to understand the user. What do they need? What are their goals? And what is the context that they are using your service or your product in? When you have the understanding, you can start analyzing and specifying the user requirements. What functionality should there be? And of course, as importantly, what there should not be. When you have the functionality kind of thought out, you can then start to designing a solution to this problem, building a prototype. And after building a prototype, you then try to get tested as quickly as possible. Based then on the test results, you iterate to any of the earlier process phases, what is the best solution in this case, based on the results that you got from the testing. And of course in here, even though the arrows start from the testing phase, it would be very natural also to go back with the iterative loop also from any of the earlier steps. So if already at specifying the requirements, I realized that actually we need to go back to get some more user understanding. That is what you are supposed to do. Then when you have tested and iterated enough, at some point you probably then have a solution that fits the needs that you defined in the beginning. So maybe next we look at the tools that you could use in each of the process phases.
Yeah. So the first phase, that one is then about understanding. So we need to understand the users. We need to be able to empathize with them. So we have to learn more about them. So what do the users, what do they say, what do they do, how do they feel, and what do they think? So it's about collecting data. We do this by interviews usually. We do remote interviews. First we do internal stakeholder interviews in order to understand and make internally have a similar vision what we need to learn from the users. And then when we know that, we will go and interview and have a discussion with users. And we have some questions about the background of the users and their roles and tasks. And then in addition to that, we have then specific questions related to the product or service, what we need to find information about. Another way could be contextual inquiry. So that is basically a site visit. So in there you would be observing the participant in his or her real environment. So in a context, but that we cannot do at the moment, at least, and even without COVID. So we do it mostly remotely. Then we could go to the next step. So now we have collected data, but the data in such doesn't do anything yet. So we need to get something out of it. So this is still about the understanding phase, but now we are going towards defining the problem. There's different tools what you could use at this phase. One good one and what we use, and there's a picture of it. So it's affinity diagramming. So basically, that's sorting and organizing data in order to see patterns and links in it, and make some insights. So that's a good way to do it. Is just to print all the notes and photos and whatnot, and go crazy with the post-its and use user quotes, and then just start working on it on the wall or something like that. Other thing what we use at this phase is personas. So a persona is a fictitious but realistic representation of a user. It's made of collected research data, and it's multiple users' data combined together. So it's not a one person, but a multiple. Well, in the end of this phase of the process, we should have a good enough problem statement. And well, if we don't, we have to go back to interviews or gather the information. Otherwise, we can go forward to the next phase.
So when you have a good problem statement, you can transfer into the ideation phase. Well, in ideation, different kind of brainstorming methods are probably quite known for us all already. But if you Google any kind of brainstorming methods, you will get plenty and plenty and plenty. What is important here is that you find a tool that will suit your team, your group that you are doing the planning, so that it feels natural and you actually get the ideas out of people. What is also important here is that you actually involve everyone. So when you choose the tool, you choose one that allows also, for example, the more quiet people to have their voice heard, and not just allow the more extroverted people to be shouting around in the room.
Yeah.
Diversity is, of course, important in any phase of the design process, but I would say that especially here, when we need to come up with what actually are the requirements and so forth, so that everyone's, again, voice is heard.
Yeah.
You should also make sure that you don't fall in love with the first idea that you got. So the saying, kill your darlings, is also very applicable here. Ensure that you have multiple ideas to go forward with. When you have the multiple ideas, or at least few, that you select then to go with to the prototyping or design phase. So in prototyping phase, find a suitable method for the idea and service or product that you are developing. If you are developing a digital service, you might like to start with just drawing ideas on the paper. How should the service or product look like? What buttons should there be? What interactions should there be? Maybe if you need to think about how you are saying things, write all those down. This you could also, of course, do digitally, and there is plenty of tools, both cheap and also free available, just to start out with. If you would be designing then service, you could try role-playing, putting your colleague to be the customer, and then yourself the person then delivering the service to the customer, and how that works out. When you have the prototype ready, go and test it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so the next phase is then about testing. So the prototype is ready, so we go and test it with the users. We always try to test with real users. Some crazy experimental stuff, we can test it internally ad hoc, but otherwise we prefer to test with real users. We do use studies remotely, usually. It could be done in person as well, but remotely is what we do. We prepare some tasks, and then during the session we ask the user to think out loud, express their feelings and thoughts, and be really open. We really emphasize that it's not the user we are testing, but it's the functionality what we are testing. After each task, we then have this kind of we do some ratings based on different criteria, so that we learn also that way. After testing, we usually do some fine-tuning to the prototype, and then start implementing that one.
Yeah.
So
Next slide.
yeah.
Sorry.
So the last phase is then about implementing. It can be done in various ways, usually in some phases. So again, then it's possible to test the implemented version before going forward, so that we know that we are going to the correct direction. But then, now we have been talking kind of more of this kind of
Methods, tools, and the process.
yeah. So what if then, if you're not working with this kind of products or digital services, so what can user experience design do then for you?
So maybe the most obvious where you can use user experience design tools is when you are designing any kind of process at work, volunteer, wherever. If there is people that need to use your process, whether it's HR process, IT support, when people need to get through your process, do they actually know what they are needing to get through it so that it's easy for them to do it and they understand why they are doing it? I think it's very important to also think, is this process now for you, or is it for the people that are dealing with the process? Another example I would really like to draw from architecture. There are public spaces and there are apartments, houses that we live in. But how much users are heard when these are being designed? Probably at least to some level. But I have an example. This is already a bit old one, but a friend of mine used to study at the Sibelius Academy when they were moving to the spaces of the music house of Helsinki. And quite soon after the move, she said that there was some passive-aggressive discussion ongoing because somebody had played Irving Goodman music instead of playing classical music. And it's understandable that we end up in these kind of discussions. The people get anxious because, of course, if you are learning or you're actually studying to play an instrument or studying in this kind of place, you need to practice many hours. And you maybe cannot do it at your home because, of course, it's not a favor that you are doing to your neighbors if you're playing hour after hour after hour each day.
Or maybe you cannot even have your instrument at home.
Exactly. And I think there are also other famous examples, like some shopping malls where the discussion has been ongoing. And I think here also, when you think about your own kitchen, has that been planned so that it's actually easy for you to use? Is there a place for everything? Is it easy to find things? Are there cupboards where you have to somehow try to reach heights that you actually cannot? How is the cooking kind of flows going, and so forth?
Yeah.
So this is also a very good example where you can use user experience design.
Like what's the height of the tabletop and so forth. So
and material choices.
Yeah.
We have one example more.
So this user experience design, you can pretty much use it whichever context you just want to try it in. So, for example, you could use it with your family, your friends. A teacher can use it at school or daycare, just to get the kids' voice heard. So they feel more. They are more committed then to the solutions that are being made because they are involved in it. So it's first about having the discussions and finding different problems, and then choosing the problem what you want to solve, and then start solving it together. So it's about sharing, and it really creates a feeling of inclusion. And everybody can use their creativity. Everybody is creative we just have different ways of expressing that one. So to conclude, what user experience design is all about, we have this great, very confusing tab again. But first, I would like to summarize that user experience and user experience design, it's about listening to the world around us and then driving a new perspective to it. Basically, that's it. What it is, and it's for everyone, and everyone can affect. So people just use different mediums to do that. It requires a growth mindset. You need to be open. Trying matters. It matters that you the way how you approach problems, that matters. How you engage with others, that matters. So with this last example of very confusing user experience, we want to bring you back to the point we started from.
Yeah, so the tabs, disinfectors, hand dryers, they are going to be around for quite some time still. And as we are all also users with the devices and services around, let's hope that the producers of these things, they actually have hired user experience professionals, and they are doing user experience, user research, and doing design, so that they make the life of the next some months a little bit easier for us, at least so that we can keep safe. And yeah, thank you, and have a nice day.
Thanks.